I don't have bios in my talks. If you want to know who I am, that's on the website. I have too much to say to spend time on that. But a few opening thoughts. When I first proposed this talk to Scott, I was really focused just on Disney park ticketing system, which is way more exciting than it sounds, I promise. But a funny thing happened when I started working on the slides. I developed this sense of perspective about how we think about and make our free-to-play games right now. And I realized as we built the talk, not just that Disney's approach is really crystal clear, but there's magic in that approach, and there are direct parallels that you'll see to our games. And I really want that kind of magic in our games. Fundamentally, I believe that we can do this. I fundamentally believe we can do better. But let's start at the beginning.
All who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future. Disneyland is dedicated to the ideals, the dreams, and the hard facts that have created America, with the hope that it will be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world. Thank you.
So unless you're a Disney park nerd like me, or you're old also like me, you may not know that when Disneyland first opened, they had an individual ticketing system. So you didn't pay an admission and go on whatever you wanted. You had to buy individual tickets for the ride. So if you wanted to go on Dumbo, 20 cents. They quickly moved to a ticket book for convenience, and they actually had used that long enough that they were at Disney World too. So I'll talk about how long the system was in place. But here's how it worked. Each attraction was assigned a letter based on its appeal and its overall status. So, for example, if you wanted to ride that fancy horse-drawn fire engine, that was an A ticket. If you wanted to ride something like the motorboats, it was a B ticket. At the time, their top-of-the-line attractions, like Peter Pan's Flight, were C tickets. But over time, they released new attractions that were even better and more spectacular. So you get Mine Train Through Nature's Wonderland, and as you might expect, a D ticket. And then finally, for what really is the modern era of their attractions, things like Enchanted Tiki Room and Pirates of the Caribbean that you can still go on today, those were E-tickets. And it seems alien if you never experienced the system, but it was so pervasive in American culture that calling something an E-ticket came to mean anything that was a top-shelf experience.
Well, you ever been to Disneyland?
Affirmative.
That was definitely an E-ticket.
Roger that, Sally.
And as someone who was there at the time, I can tell you about the player's experience. So the player's experience with this system is you go on Small World twice, which is an E-ticket, and it drives your dad crazy because he hates that ride. And then you get to Haunted Mansion, and you look at your ticket book, and you don't have any tickets left, any E-tickets. So you bug the shit out of your dad, and he goes to the ticket booth, and he buys more E-tickets so you can finally go on Haunted Mansion. That was the player's experience. So this is not trivial for Disney. They continued to run this system until 1981. So you're looking at almost 30 years investment in this system. They tuned it, they tweaked it, they did everything we do in free-to-play to monetize maximize our monetization, including teaching people how to use it. But yet, in the late 70s, they started phasing out tickets in favor of all-you-can-eat plans. And at the time, industry analysts said it was because Magic Mountain opened with that plan, but that's not true. When you look at it historically, Disney was testing, very similar to the way we do A/B tests. And they had a great A/B test group. You can think of it as their beta server. Their A/B test group was the Magic Kingdom Club. So employers in Los Angeles could provide discount Disney tickets as a benefit to employees. What Disney got out of that was not just regular attendance, but what they got out of it was people who understood how the park worked and could make informed decisions when you offer them important choices, like how do you want to pay? What do you prefer? And they could choose a ticket book, or they could choose the all-you-could-eat pass, and they were looking at the data. There's a thought process at work here that developed Disney best practices. So a quick note, when I use the phrase best practices, always hear giant air quotes around it, because I certainly hear that when I say it. But let's look at this best practice for a minute. Let me think about, if you asked me, as someone who's been in free-to-play for a long time, to think about that ticket system and analyze it from a monetization perspective, here's what I'd say. Well, we know monetization through microtransactions makes more money than subscriptions. And if you ask me to look at the attractions, I'd say, you know, that is where you want to monetize because they're awesome. I mean, Submarine Voyage is the best. I mean, look at that fucking octopus. That's tremendous, right? That is definitely an e-ticket. When people go on this ride, they are going to know that they got value for their ticket. So really what I would do if you asked me to monetize this against Pirates of the Caribbean is I want people to get to Pirates of the Caribbean and have no e-tickets left. In fact, more specifically, I want them to have no e-tickets and a couple A and B tickets. And there are a couple reasons for this. The first one is if you look at your ticket book and you have no e-tickets, but you still have A and B, you're not going to say, Disney didn't give me enough tickets. You're going to say, I used too many tickets. The second reason I want you to do that is because when you look at that ticket book and you see that you have A and B tickets, and instead you go to the booth and buy more tickets, you are making a choice to do that. And anytime you can monetize with players feeling like they made a choice instead of the game making them do it, you'll be more successful. So you know what? Pirates of the Caribbean is awesome. You want to ride Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Well, fuck you, back to the ticket booth. That's absolutely the way I would monetize that. And the other thing to think about is, we took a lot of time and money to make this fantastic park, and we're not greedy. We actually love what we do. We love what we built. I mean, Tomorrowland, look at that. That's fantastic. And Rocket to the Moon, it's cutting edge. You can't have an experience like that anywhere else in the world. Well, a few years down the road, though, it's not so cutting edge anymore. Everyone's been on it a billion times. We've actually been to the moon a lot. It's kind of getting old, and visitors are getting bored. So you know what we're going to do? It's okay. We're going to close the park because parks always churn people out every couple years. And you just close the park and you build a new one. So how dumb is that? And we do this. This is what we're doing right now in free-to-play games. So let's take a look at what Disney did and why they made the choice to change away from microtransactions for their attractions to a different plan. Well, the roots of that come in the fact that Disneyland was the first of its kind, and they had no idea what they were doing when they built it. They had great ideas, but over time they had to grow and change and launch after launch and stay open and flexible just like we do. And when you compare Disneyland to the Magic Kingdom at Disney World, you can see absolutely how much they learned in that experience. A key part of that was that when they built Disneyland originally, they didn't buy enough land. They had just enough for the park. So there were all these shitty hotels outside that were a terrible experience. And by the way, I love the fact that they misspelled Disneyland on the sign. So Disney had no control over people's experience when they left the park. So when they started Disney World, they got 30,000 acres. So they'd have room to expand. But more important, it was a key shift. Now they had room to immerse guests in their experience. And that led to the really key shift. Now they're thinking in terms of a captive audience. And by captive audience, I mean people who spend significant amounts of time with you and build memories, and you become a part of their personal history. They also made the shift from being the company that provides a space that's fun to being the company that is responsible for you having fun in their space. You see them start to transition into an active role in entertaining people instead of a passive role of laying out activities. And to support that, they built hotels that first were emphasizing easy access to the parks. Over time, they built more cheap hotels. They're broadening the top of their funnel. They broadened their activities. They said, what else do you want to do in Florida? Well, you want to go to boating, and you want to go to golf, and you want to do lots of things. So they add those things, and now people are spending their entire vacation at Disney World instead of going to other parks like SeaWorld. And you know what? You don't always want to go to a park. Sometimes you want to go on a boat. So there are Disney cruises. There's Adventures by Disney where you can go to Europe and Asia and other places. You can even be in the Disney Vacation Club, where you have a dedicated week of timeshare every year at the same Disney resort. So what Disney was doing here was not accidental. It was very strategic. They weren't thinking about making a nickel off of you today. They were thinking about becoming a part of your life. They wanted to build attachments that mean something to you. And they wanted to be a part of your personal, emotional history. Because as an entertainment company, they recognize that entertainment thrives on emotional connections. They are an entertainment-focused business. So let's step back for a second with some perspective, and I want to apply some of this reasoning to a couple companies that are handling customers in a very similar way to Disney. And it's funny, because whenever I'm in a monetization talk with somebody, and I say, look at what Blizzard and Valve are doing, they're really monetizing in a smart way, I always get the same answer. And I want to apply that answer now to Disney, since they're doing similar things. So let's try it. So you know what? Valve and Blizzard are monetizing people in really smart ways, just like Disney. Well, you know, it's not really a fair comparison. They have deep pockets, and they don't really care about money. Really? Disney doesn't care about money? They absolutely care about money. That's why they're doing this. So let's talk about why. First, the change from the letter ticket system meant instead of spending an extra $3 on e-tickets, Dad was willing to open his wallet and spend an extra $10 or $20 on lunch. And they even stayed longer in the park, so now you got dinner out of them as well. And you're getting, keep in mind, you price the pass at pretty much what they would have spent on tickets anyway. So Disney is ahead here. They're further ahead when they stay in a hotel. They're even further ahead when they stay in the hotel for a week. And you know what? It's a better experience for their guests as well. Their guests are happier. Disney started to measure loyalty, not in coming to the park and spending, 20 cents on Dumbo, but in years. In the same families coming to Disney for years and years, and that's where their focus is. And you can see it in their marketing. Disneyland, let the memories begin. People change, but Disney memories last forever. Memories, 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 memories. Disney is focused on retention. It's at the heart of their experience. And you know what? It's totally possible for us to do this. There are people doing this right now. Let's take a look at them. So here's a great example, Guild Wars 2. So Guild Wars 2 has a box price. You buy the box, you play the game forever. A great analogy, the Disney annual pass. And here's why it's a smart idea. Because when I have an annual pass for Disney, you know it's priced about what they would have made off me on tickets anyway, right? That's certainly what their pricing is all about. But because I have it, I'll see it in my wallet, and it will remind me to go to Disney. I'll actually look at it and say, oh, it expires in a month. I really need to get more value out of this. They'll send me special emails, beta testing their attractions on their annual pass holders. They're getting retention out of this. So they got pretty much the same amount of money they would have gotten from me buying tickets, and they're getting even more money because I go more often and I buy souvenirs and I eat food and I do all sorts of things, right? They're making more money off of the one-time purchase. And before you say Guild Wars 2 is not a good comparison because it's not microtransactions, it absolutely is. They have a store, and what they sell in their store is fantastic. So one of the things that you can buy is an ore node that produces crafting resources that in your home instance. It produces them once a day, forever. It is account-wide. It never expires. Every character I create for the lifetime of Guild Wars 2 will have that item that I bought, which is crazy talk in traditional free-to-play. But it's great because what it means is not only do I feel like I got great value, and it wasn't cheap, right? We're talking in the $5, $10, $20 purchase range here for a microtransaction is fairly large. But what it does is it's a daily production. It reminds me to come in every day to get value out of it. They're getting retention out of their monetization purchase. Another thing that they do that's similar is every character can have 2 crafting styles. You can pay money and unlock a 3rd crafting style permanently on every character you create for the lifetime of the game. It was an insta-buy for almost everybody as soon as it went up on the store. Are you giving yourself room to grow? Are you thinking in a way that lets you expand? So you can think about like that, like the Disneyland, but you can also think about the changes that they've made since then. And one of the best examples for this is Lord of the Rings. If you're not watching the store in Lord of the Rings online, download it when you get home and watch the store. Because there's no company more responsive to how monetization affects retention than Lord of the Rings online. And I think probably Guild Wars 2 was heavily inspired by what Lord of the Rings has decided to sell to its hardcore players. Are you giving enough room for immersion for your players? Are you trying to make sure that you are not just putting something out there and saying, here, have fun, but actually are you the shepherd of their fun? And one way to tell that is, do people care enough about your game to cosplay? And before you say I'm only going to have examples of big, high-budget MOBAs and MMOs, nope. How about Words with Friends? It launched in 2009, actually July 2009, so it's probably exactly 5 years old. And lots of people, including a lot of my family members, play that every day. They've been playing it every day for 5 years. It's now a part of their life. They extended it into a physical game. And before you say cosplay, what are you talking about? Well, this is the equivalent of cosplay for Words with Friends. People make Words with Friends cakes. This is cookies decorated for Words with Friends. It has the same kind of rabid fans that you see at Disney parks and in MMOs. And in fact, thinking about your loyalty in years really starts to change the way you view the landscape. This is EverQuest, which is, of course, a great example, going into its 16th year. And they're able to extend that loyalty across brands into EverQuest 2, Landmark that's coming out now, EverQuest Next that's coming out later this year. And the reason they can do that is because EverQuest created emotional connections. If you get a room full of people who played the original EverQuest together, we will immediately start shouting out all of the things we did that we remember. It's a part of our life. It's a part of our landscape. There are whole websites dedicated to people talking about what they remember about EverQuest. Can your game inspire that sort of memory for people? Can it become a part of their lives? This is World of Tanks. World of Tanks is also a big part of its players' lives. They plan their week around it. They feel like their week isn't complete if they haven't played World of Tanks. Some of their best memories right now are coming from when they play World of Tanks. And a part of that Disney also recognizes is the importance of community. We talk about monetization 10 times more than we talk about community, and that's fucking backwards. We should be putting community first. Community is how we make money. And when you look at successful games, they're the ones that are winning all the community awards, right? So you have League of Legends, you have World of Warcraft, you have World of Tanks. But before, once again, you say big ticket games, that's all this applies to, no, there's Diamond Dash and Solitaire Blitz on there as well. Anybody can foster a great community that's going to drive your monetization. And ultimately, I believe that's where Disney arrived. They arrived at the understanding that ultimately their magic is in their community. It's about the people who come, not trying to get money out of the people who come. And we have companies that recognize that too. And you can see strong parallels in the fact that they recognize that their success is based around happy players, around happy people. And because there are people who are doing this in this space, I know that we can do this. I am absolutely convinced there's a better way. It's not impossible. You can actually make more money that way. You just have to be committed to thinking about people before you think about money. And as soon as you start doing that, you have happier players and more of them. Thank you.
Wow, it was a fantastic talk, as always. You're saying, do you have characters that people want to cosplay? What are some steps that you can take to, on the front end of the development process, try to make that happen?
If you look really closely at what, for example, League of Legends and Dota do, they never, on the character side, they never introduce a character without having a video and a page dedicated to that character. That it can only have 2 paragraphs. You don't need, tomes of backstory, but some backstory. They're also very careful in their character design in that they hit really broadly. So a good example is if you look at League of Legends, you'll see female characters who are typical, like, cleavage ladies, right?
Femme fatales.
Yes. And then you will see women who are not, female characters who are not, right? So they hit very broad with their characters as well. But I think the key is I think when a company clearly assigns value and meaning to something that's important to the team and that's reflected in the marketing, I think the players attach to that because they can see the love and the care that's in that character. I think that's at the heart, for example, of Blizzard's success.
That's a really good point. It's like if you don't try for it, it's not going to happen probably. Okay, that's great. Anyone else have questions for the brilliant Laralyn?
Nope.
Awesome talk. Thank you.